PGA Nation, we are back. We are back with the ZOZO. And you know what? The ZOZO, in my mind, even though it's not accurate by any stretch of the imagination, often feels like the season kickoff. You know, everyone kind of starts coming out for the ZOZO. So it really is feeling like, all right, new season. We're really getting this thing going. And we're doing it coming off a hot start, getting on the right track last week. I'm sure if you follow us on Twitter, you saw the lineup I drafted on this very show last week. Ended up taking down $20K in a tournament. It was funny that we were talking right before we started. I was deciding between Wallace and Chesson Hadley. I said it on the show. And I actually put the lineup with Chesson Hadley in another tournament, and that won that tournament for another $5K. So we were on it. We were definitely on it last week. And to be honest, obviously my lineup is getting all of the credit, but all of our lineups were really good last week. So it wasn't just mine. We all had a really good week. We were really on it. We're running it back. We're riding that momentum into this week, heading to Japan and the ZOZO, which is always just a fun and entertaining tournament to watch. Spencer, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Like I told you off the air, I'm not doing as well as you are after all your takedowns. But, you know, it's kind of funny when we do this draft, players go off the board and then you don't have an opportunity to take them. So I feel like I am the true MVP of this for why that lineup ended up winning. I was drafting next to you in the 2 spot. I'm like a good batting practice pitcher, or like the pitcher throwing in the home run derby. I was just throwing it right down the middle, leaving Tom Kim for you, leaving all these players for you to be able to grab. So, I mean, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I feel like some percentage of that money, like at least in theory, belongs to me on it.
For sure. I write you an IOU for $1 for allowing
Perfect.
that to happen. So you got it. That's for sure yours. For David, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, but I'm going to disagree with Spence because I was the real MVP last week. As you guys know, I traveled from New Zealand over to the States for a family holiday or vacation, as you call it there. And I decided I was going to pop across to Vegas for about 6 hours of the morning of the Shriners Children's Open. So, I mean, what I did for you, Joel, is I got in all those players' ears. You know, I was whispering like sweet words to them, explaining the situation, making sure that they really performed for you. So, sorry, Spence, but everyone else who followed Joel's lineup, you're welcome.
There you go. There you have it. But if I'm going to be honest, while I love both of you, it wasn't either of you that did it. It's the audience. You guys are the real MVPs, showing up every week, giving out your lineups. But not only that, technically, I think last week you guys got the pick the draft order, but I just stole it and took the first pick. And so in reality, you really are the MVPs for giving me the first pick. So this week, audience, I'm returning the favor. You guys are picking first, and you guys are going to take down $20K. Because I'm going to get first for more, but that's for a later time. Anyway, for this week, we want to get through a course breakdown with Spence, find out what to look for on the course. Then we'll get into the draft as we normally do. Spence, tell us what we're looking for.
Yeah, so it's Narashino Country Club. It's just under 7,100 yards, par 70 bent grass greens. I'd consider this my version of being a dreaded betting week, just since we don't have in-tournament numbers available after these rounds. I will say I wouldn't be shocked if a site like Data Golf gives us something to work with, although third-party resources can only be so accurate with how they run their metrics. So unfortunately, it's one of those contests where the long-term data points are faulty in general, since we don't have enough information to extrapolate that out into course-specific blueprints. You know, I don't want to get too much into how I built my model because we'd be here all day trying to uncover every deviation I made when I compiled these stats, but Narashino features what I would call a claustrophobic design. The venue emphasizes a substantial tree-lined nature that requires golfers to move the ball in multiple directions because of the dog legs throughout, which does mean, at least theoretically, accuracy is going to take the top spot over distance because of some of the forced layups. Although, as a counterpoint to that, I wouldn't entirely discount length, since all 3 par 5 stretch between 562 to 608 yards. And there are also 5 par 4s between 486 to 505. I'm sure David will talk about it a little bit. There's also been some rain in the forecast, so that might add distance a little bit more to the equation. All of that's going to create a hidden level of impact on distance when you consider almost half the holes will require you to hit a driver off the tee. But As far as my model goes, and I'll just really quickly get into it, I tried to mimic the venue to similar tests we've seen in the past. I put 15% on strokes gained total at short par 70s with average to difficult fairways and 12.5% on average to difficult scoring at short courses. I dove into the calculated ranges of all the par 3, 4, and 5 holes. I looked pretty heavily into the ability to salvage a score. So that would be your bogey avoidance, scrambling, sand save, around the green metrics. And then I formed my own weighted proximity and total driving stats to, again, get a better feel for the test that's going to be on hand. That has some distance, that has some accuracy. It has GIRs that are going to be hit. It has all the weighted proximity from at least what I ran out when I tried to look at where I think players are going to be hitting their drive off the tee. So, I tried to make my model as unique as possible to get away from some of the public sentiments that are going to take place. I always mention this. I think a lot of people use the same sites for their research and they use a lot of the same information. And I'm always trying to build things at least a little bit differently to where I don't come up with all the same answers. There's certain players that I'm not going to be able to get around that my model is going to like, but it's a difficult week without at least a built-in, viewpoint of past historical data that we can pull from.
Yeah, that's very fair. Now the tournament has been played here, twice before?
Twice, and that's worth noting is that the 2020 edition went to Sherwood in California. So just be aware that if you're using stats, that you need to exclude that week of any relevance to performance at this tournament. I mean, if you believe that certain people peak at certain times a year, fair enough. But I generally just tend to look at the way that people have played the course before. So 2019 and then last year as well were the two renditions that were at this course here. As Spence mentioned, weather's going to be a factor in terms of there's quite a lot of rain predicted for Thursday. So for me, that's putting some emphasis on the driving distance of making sure that your balls aren't going to run out as far, obviously, on a softer fairway. So making sure that you're getting some decent distance off the tee is going to be imperative this week for me. It does look extremely heavy that first day, and that means Friday morning's likely going to be a bit wet as well. So the other one is scrambling around the greens. I think is a big advantage at this course, particularly as Spence mentioned, some of those longer par fives. That means when players are going for that second shot, they may not be able to keep it on the green, but they want to get up and down, kind of similar to last week at Shriners for trying to get up and down for a birdie rather than to safe par.
Yeah, I don't have the metric in front of me right now, but the par 5 that's over 600 yards, the birdie or better percentage on it, it's 21% or whatever it actually is on it. And that's as low as you're ever going to see for a par 5. And it's a super long hole. It's kind of all the reasons why David said that. I have 17.5% on that around the green, sand save, all those metrics. So I think all of that's going to be very important this week.
I love it. Listen to that back. That's the way to find your edge when handicapping a tournament like this. And let's not forget that they really tee off our time Wednesday night. So if you're planning to play, have your lineups prepared on Wednesday. Don't get caught up and realizing it's too late. Even though it's going to be Thursday morning there, it is Wednesday night here. So be ready. Keep an eye on that. Check. Make sure no one's got any last-minute withdrawals Wednesday night before tee-off locks. Now, audience, you are on the clock. I gave you the first pick. It's the least I could do. Get your nominations in now. We'll get this draft started.
They're already sorted, mate. They've got it. They've had 3 nominations already for the one, the only, the man, Sanjay Im. And speaking of the man, I'd also like to invite into the comment section Sia Nejad, who again hit another first round leader at plus 6,000 for Tom Hoagie, and he's incredible. Not only has he got his good looks and charm, but he's one hell of a tout.
Sia, we appreciate you joining us, helping the squad out with the draft. We miss you this evening. We look forward to having you back next week, but nobody is surprised. Sia hits his first round leader. Actually, to be honest with you, Sia, I'm a little bit disappointed. I tend to expect you to hit 2 first round leader buttons on a weekly basis. You only had 1. So next week, I think you can be better, but we'll accept at least half credit for getting the 1 first round leader. So good job, Sia. Audience, way to get your pick in. Sanjay Im, good pick. Spencer, any thoughts on the first pick here?
It's hard to win this contest when last week you took Patrick Cantlay. Now this week Sanjay Im goes off the board. Clearly he's going to probably be the most expensive or the most popular player because $10,000 is way too cheap for him, but he's number one in my model in every single iteration of how I ran it. There was really not much I could find for why I didn't like him this week. So I think he probably should be the first pick off the board at that price tag.
Fair enough, Spence. You are on the clock.
All right, so that puts me in a bit of a bind right now. I guess I'll just go with the player that technically, I guess the player that technically has the most distance would be Cameron Champ, but I'm going to go with the player that has the second most distance in my model. That's going to be Cameron Young at 9,300. Really like how Cameron Young sets up for this course. It's one of those spots where the reason why I don't like Champ comes down to a lot of the short game metrics. And, he has some maybe long iron proximity that makes sense. But as far as Cameron Young is concerned, he's number 2 in my model for overall birdie or better percentage, number 2 in par 5 birdie or better percentage. I think when you're looking at trying to find, it's a no-cut tournament. Everybody's going to get in 4 days. I want to find players that are going to be able to reach their high-end total, even if there's a little bit more volatility to them at the end of the day. And to me, Cameron Young probably has the highest ceiling of anybody that's not in the $10,000 section. And while maybe the floor is a little bit more erratic, I don't think it's so much so to where, at 17%, I don't think that that's a wild ownership percentage to take on.
I like it. I like the pick. I like Cameron Young every week, so I'm on board. David, what do you think of the Cameron Young pick?
I'm offended. I'm insulted. I'm frustrated because that's my number one golfer this week, Cameron Young. I love the distance off the tee. I love the approach stats that we see from him. And we've got this weird blend with Cameron Young, which is very rare, of getting this extreme distance off the tee, but an elite short game at the same time where you can scramble, which I think is going to be extremely important around here. So well done, Spence. You've ruined my draft on the first pick.
Well, the audience started it in the wrong direction, so it's just a trickle down effect.
Actually, you're right. Let's blame the audience. It's probably the audience as well. I'm now going to have to scramble, and if we're going along that kind of route of the driver who's got distance off the tee, I'm really liking the form that he's bringing into this tournament is Kurt Kitayama. I love the upside that you get with this player. He's been elite on the DP World Tour, and I think the travel aspect does come in this week as well in terms of the fact that Kurt Kitayama's had to travel around the world on a regular basis in order to compete in these tournaments. Plenty of distance off the tee, plenty of eagle potential, and he's gaining on approach, gaining on around the green as well compared to the field on the majority of his attempts. So I love that stat profile, and I'm loving the price that we're getting on him. Well, speaking of which, we can't actually see the prices at the moment for the spreadsheet, so I don't know if that's issue with the font color or something like that, but we might need to just have a quick look at that. But Kurt Kitayama is my pick, and interested to hear your guys' thoughts.
I like him. He's a good value pick. I like getting him in the mid-range. Kitayama's a guy I often target as a first-round leader, so he might be someone we mention even later on as well. What do you think, Spence?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like about him. One of the things I always try to note on this show is just when I do see sharp movement, and I've seen Kitayama's number just drifting, or I guess plummeting, it's the better word to use there in this space right now. So, it's hard to argue when something like that is taking place, and my model seems to kind of agree with that sentiment too.
Well, I have to say this draft really worked out swimmingly for me because 2 of the guys I was targeting with my first pick dropped to me. I was only expecting 1, 2, and now that I'm going to get both, I'm not sure if I can really afford both, but you know how the DraftKings works. We're going to roll with it and see where the draft takes us from there. So with my first pick, I'm going to take, as Byron has mentioned in the stat, Hideki. Of course, we got to get Decky Gate going. I'll be the first to get it started here. I just think, people got down on Decky because he was hurt last year. I'm not a doctor. I haven't examined him, but I have to assume he had a lot of time off. He's playing in the tournament. My mind says I think he's recovered. I know nothing. I just hope I'm right. If he's healthy, I think he's going to be one of the better players in this tournament. I think he's for sure a top 5, top 10 type player. And obviously the risk is his health. So I wouldn't play him in cash or small tournaments, but for a GPP, even though his ownership is probably, I think I'm seeing about 17%. I think that's fine for Decky here. And I'm going to pair him with who basically is Tiger Woods Jr., and that's Tom Kim. Maybe the greatest golfer we've ever seen. He just keeps winning. Nothing showing me he's slowing down. I mean, for a course that you are going to want to prioritize ball striking, he's proven to be an elite ball striker. His form is obviously there. Yes, the concern is, do you really think he's going to win another tournament back-to-back? He doesn't need to win necessarily. I do think he's going to compete and do really well, though.
Yeah, as far as Hideki goes, just really quickly with him, like there's only one player who's beaten him on this course, and that would be Tiger Woods. So, I mean, that's a pretty good stat to have there for him. And I don't think 17% is that outrageous. I kind of envision when this week started, it's a 78-man field. I thought that Hideki could push like 25, 30, 35%. And if he's only going to be 17%, it kind of makes me reconsider some of my stances I had on him. I still have worries because I don't know exactly where he's at with his game right now, but it might be that Patrick Cantlay situation to where he was really good at TPC Summerlin. Hideki's really good on this course, and it's one of those things where I do think ball striking sees an emphasis here just because it is so difficult, and anytime that's the case, putting kind of goes backwards to like the importance, just because when you think of Birdie Fest, you have to make putts. That's not necessarily the case here. Like, sure, you're going to always have to make putts, but like that liability isn't such a liability when the winning score is, let's say, 13 under par versus 25 under par.
Exactly. I totally agree. Byron and Sia are saying there's a Decky gate that he was already taken, but that's blasphemous because he was not, and there's no evidence to support this claim. I would like to call in my counsel, Sia Nejad, to defend my case. If you can come forth with any evidence proving otherwise, I will look at it. But for now, with zero evidence, we move on. David, you are back on the pod.
I believe it's a frivolous claim that is actually resulting in loss of time for the DraftCast. So claim denied. And I'm going to go to the top of the board for me, a player that obviously has just had an outstanding year, and particularly the last end of the year was pretty iconic in terms of 10 top 20 finishes from 11 starts, and that's Xander Schauffele. I think that his floor is incredibly high, so I love him as a lock in terms of some of those core lineups that I'm building. I would be surprised if he's not in the top 15. And so I love plugging him in and then building a team around him in terms of some riskier plays for that GPP element.
Yeah, that's the route I was going to go with my next pick. Look, I mean, I think, like, at least as far as my model is concerned, Sungjae Im, forget ownership. Let's just, like, throw that out the window for a second. It thinks Sungjae's the best play. I mean, Xander, if there's going to be any leverage that you can create off of him, I think that argument can kind of start pushing back in his direction. And there's, like I kind of said with Sungjae, there's just really not much you can find about Xander that you cannot like.
Particularly with Xander, I'll point out as well that there's going to be a disproportionate number of shots from 150 to 200 yards at this golf course. Data Golf have that at over 9 more shots from that range compared to other normal PGA Tour golf courses. And Xander Schauffele is elite with those long irons as well, so I like that aspect of this game too. Yeah,
I will agree with that. I guess I'll move us along, and I don't really technically have a pick right now. This draft has not gone as swimmingly for me as it seems to have gone for everybody else. All right. I guess I will go with... I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm going to create some leverage on this pick here. I'm going to take Tyrrell Hatton at 9,100. He looks to be the player that, at least from 9,000 and above, is going to give me the best pivot potential. I see 8.7% right now. That's the 28th highest owned player in this field. I have some concerns about the way that he models out for me, but inside the top 15 for my model, there's only 12 players that graded as, I guess, what I would call in the top end of every single metric that I look for. Hatton is one of them. So if you're telling me that Hatton is a guy that nobody's going to play, and he's a guy that my model seems to like from all the back end stuff that I'm looking, I'll take him and try to get different there.
I like it. I like it. Audience, you are back on the pod. Now you got 2 in a row, so get as many nominations in as you can. rapid fire because we need to get 2 picks in to get you through this turn. You had a good start with Thong, and I think what's really interesting about this draft, which doesn't usually happen, is almost the entire, or not the entire, but a good portion of the top of the board was drafted, which we normally do start early. So I think it goes to show you we are prioritizing some of these higher priced guys thus far. The first pick is in for the audience. It is Mito Pereira, who is, I think, a great value pick at his price this week. You know, we've seen Mito be an elite golfer in the past year. We saw him fall off and struggle a bit. It seems to be turning back on that turn of playing really good golf, and at 8,300 seems like a really good price for him this week.
Yeah, my model likes him. It likes the upside that he possesses here. I don't know if I trust him on Sunday with some of the stuff we've seen, but I think at 8,300 the price tag is just too cheap. Like, you don't need a victory out of him. Just get like the birdie making upside that he does have, and hopefully he doesn't completely implode on a Sunday.
You know what might be good for him is like if he comes into Sunday like maybe in 10th, so he doesn't have the pressure.
Yeah, perfect.
And just stay in the round 10, and that'll be fine. That'll be fine. And it looks like the second pick is going to be Scott Thong. Another pick I like. I think Scott Thong is a player on the rise. He's shown really good form in the past 6 months of play. And I see no reason to believe that doesn't continue at 8,200.
Yeah, my model, like, he is there's 3 players in the 8,000s that I am more bullish on than everybody else in that range, and Stallings would be one of those 3 players. So I think he's certainly somebody to consider at that price tag.
I love it. Audience coming in with a dangerous team. Spence, you are back on the clock.
All right, I am going to take a player. I'm seeing 15.6% right now. He's one of the handful of guys that has actually played this tournament both times. He has a 7th place in 2021, a 22nd place in 2019. I'm going to go with Tommy Fleetwood, and I'm going to hope that some of that long iron play from him is more towards that like 2018, 2019 version than what we've gotten here more recently. Like in my model, when I'm running this from a 2-year perspective, he's 56th with proximity from over 200 yards. But the one thing I know about Fleetwood when he was at his best is that long iron play and the total driving was a deadly combination that he possessed. So I think that if we're talking about players where this is going to be more challenging, we know that Fleetwood excels in these more difficult tests. Think of Open Championships. Think of some of these European style courses that he does play well at. I think we put him in Japan here. You're telling me that the winning score is going to be probably 15 under par or less. That's the type of tournament that Fleetwood can win. And he's second in my model from an overall rank sense. And that's about as high as I've ever had him before, even when I weighted the long iron proximity. So there's going to be some negative that you're going to have to deal with, but the high end results, it's like, once again, what I'm looking for. Give me these players that over 4 days, I am at least seeing that high end potential come into play. And Fleetwood has that in my model this week.
I love it. You got another strong looking team though. I guess there is still somehow plenty of salaries. I'm like getting concerned. Are we going to run out of money here? But it looks like our average price per dollar is still there. So goes to show you can be a little bit more balanced if you want to kind of play how you like this week. I think you can. There's a lot of creative ways to build a roster. All right, David, you are on the clock.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the Aussie Cam Davis with my next pick. What I liked with him last week is that I think he's going to fly under the radar a little bit this week, given he only finished 37th at the Shriners. But what I'm seeing is a good improvement on his approach play compared to a pretty terrible start to the new year on the Fortinet Championship. And what I'm always looking for is that improvement and that upward trajectory in those ball striking stats as an indication that this player may have found something and may be turning it around. If we're thinking Cam Davis, obviously great distance off the tee. We know that he's got a bit of a prevalent streak in these shorter courses, and at 7,000 yards, this is a relatively short course other than some of those par fives. And I like those stats from the 150 to 200 yard approach play mark as well for Cam Davis. So I do think he's a little bit of a sneaky play at that price. I think he does go lower owned than some of those other options in that region. And I like the upside that I get with him there.
Yeah, that's player number 2 for me in the $8,000 range. In no particular order, by the way, but that's the second guy that I think is a very good play in the $8,000 section.
I love it. Well, there you have it. It's good to hear that we are all, for the most part, pretty aligned. It means if we're all liking the same pick, there's something to say about the stats and why we like those plays. Now, for me, getting back here on the turn, I have 2 picks. And the 2 guys I'm going to go with are, I'm going to start with Sepp Straka. Sepp Straka, I just love the way his game has kind of turned around over the last few months. I mean, when he competes, he gets really high finishes, right? And if we're going for these GPPs, he's the type of guy who's not safe. Like he's, if he's off on the week, he'll miss the cut. But when he's dialed in, we've seen him top 5 win tournaments. And I think if he can dial one in this week, I think we can see him have a really good result. So at 7,900, getting under the 8K range, I need to start balancing my lineup out. I think I can do so with him here. And I'm going to follow him up with Mark Hubbard. Mark Hubbard's just playing really consistent recently. I mean, he's 5th at the center from some farms. He was tied for 21 at the Fortinet. Again, another guy in the 7K range that's shown a lot of consistency. He can balance out my lineup that I'm drafting to be very kind of stars and scrubs and top heavy.
Yeah, my model always likes Mark Hubbard, so you're never going to get an argument from me there.
Love it. Appreciate that. David, you are back on the clock.
I am back again, and I'm going to go with the Colombian with my next pick, Sebastian Munoz.
Oh, man.
Which Spence is delighted about. So, Spence, would you like to tell me why my pick is great?
Well, it's like it just goes back to what I'm talking about of trying to find these high upside golfers. Like I think Munoz and Mito Pereira are the 2 guys in the $8,000 section that fits that perfectly. When I run this to look for, like one of the things I do in my model is I run it for overall, I run it for upside, and I run it for safety. This is like the 1 week even more so than any other week when I look at it because of the no cut nature. It's very important for me to find these guys that have a bunch of upside to them. Just because you're going to be able to get in 4 rounds of golf. Like I will get to this in the first round leader section. Both of those 2 players are going to make my card this week, but I like him. I guess there's a 4th player in the $8,000 section, which I don't think I'll be able to afford. That might make some sense, but I think if like you're looking and you're trying to build into this 8,000 range, Munoz, Mito, I'll mention him just because I don't think it'll influence the show. Siwoo Kim is probably interesting. Like there's a couple guys to consider in that range.
I love it. I love it. There you have it, Spence. You are back on the clock.
All right. This is not that easy of a pick, but I guess I will go with the upside thing that I currently have right now that I just keep mentioning over and over again. And I will take Aaron Rai at 7,500. So 31st in my model, 18th when I run this purely for upside. The safety metric of 31st overall is still fine for him there. And like when I look this at strokes gained total on short par 70s with average to difficult to hit fairways, he's inside the top 20. He's inside the top 25 when it looks at difficult scoring courses. We know that he's had some overseas success in the past as it is. I think the par 5 scoring is good enough to where he can find some success there. And the total driving for me places him 8th overall, 6th for ball striking, 11th for the weighted off the tee, which is just that like total driving plus weighted proximity stats. So I think Rai is somebody that can like give you a very sneaky top 10 out of nowhere here.
I do. I like that pick. We've seen Rai show flashes from week to week at 7,500. I think you get a good value there. Audience, do not forget to get your nominations in. You have back-to-back picks. There's 1 nomination. There's 2 nominations. Feel free to flood them in as you go. While they do so, David, what do you think about the Aaron Rai pick?
I love it, and I love the fact that the audience are obviously very, very upset about this pick because that's always great. And Sia has entered the chat to pass on these accusations.
I am here to protect the audience from, listen, Spencer, I get that you're rattled, but you can't just go in and take all of our picks. It's not cool, man.
I didn't even know the audience was on him. I don't have the chat up in front of me, so I wasn't looking at that. Hey, I write like 20 articles a week. You can go into any of those articles and you can find Aaron Rai over and over and over again in there.
Well, it's officially Rygate, as Byron has pointed out aptly in the chat, which Spencer allegedly can't see. Okay, so here's the thing, guys. I have to run in and run out, but there was no way I wasn't going to jump in here and give my first round leader picks after hitting Tom Hoagie, right? I mean, I can't do that, right?
No, we have to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Tom Hoagie, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at the camera. Come on to the show. So we like to invite people on the show with names that people kind of like aren't sure how to pronounce. Like, is it Hogue? Is it Hoagie? Is it Sahith Thegala? Is it Sahith Thegala? Is it Sahith Thegala? Like, so it's Sahith Thegala, right? But the point is, Tom, come on to the show. Like, this is my pitch. I'm sure you're watching. I know Tom Hoagie Nation is watching. We support you by supporting the first round leader, which got you there on Thursday. And you supported us by coming through. So Tom Hoagie, you got to come on to the PGA DraftCast. All right, cool. All right, so now that that's out of the way, Tom Hoagie is not one of my first round leaders. I'm going to make this quick. You guys mentioned the guy that is going to be the easy button first round leader. So Joel, I want you to get that ready, but let me go over the other 4 first. I picked 5 guys here. I think honestly, there's only like 50 that are really in contention to like actually close a day on top. So, you know, the odds are shorter than I would like. Let's start with Mito Pereira at 35-1. I liked him last week as first round leader. I like him this week as first round leader, period. Scott Stallings at 40-1. We've talked about both. You guys have talked about both of these guys on the PGA DraftCast. I like him at 40-1. Again, these are first round leader bets. Matthew Wallace, Joel. I mean, great call. Great pickup. Matthew Wallace at 70-1. I'm going to go sort of off the reservation a little bit. I'm going to go to Kazuki Higa at 100-1. So that's 4. So we got Mito, we got Stallings, we got Wallace, Higa, and then the shortest of them all, the shortest odds of them all. This is a guy that has such great first round leader equity, especially with not a ton of skill at the top. He is a monster. He rates out so well, especially if length is going to be important, if off the tee is going to be important. When he is hot, he is hot. And of course, I'm talking about your first round leader post, Wednesday morning Eastern Standard Time, because we're playing over in Japan at the ZOZO Championship. Your first round leader, your easy button first round leader for back-to-back easy button first round leaders. Last week, it was Tom Hoagie. This week, it is none other than at 25-1, Cameron Young.
That was easy.
Well, there you have it. I mean,
you're welcome, world.
Listen, at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell you to bet your whole house on it, but if you did last week, you would be a rich person. So
you'd have 60 houses.
Actually,
60 houses.
So I don't think Jeff Bezos has 60 houses. So you would basically be richer than Jeff Bezos.
Don't be irresponsible like J-Dog, who literally won $30,000 on that bet, because that's what he does. Like, just splash it a little bit, Carmen. Thanks for noticing that I joined the show. But this is the easy button play, which means, of course, it's coming in. So I'm going to let you guys finish the DraftCast. I noticed the audience has 2 picks. I'm going to probably jump back in and try to help out with that. But everybody, thanks for watching. If you haven't already hit the like button, please hit it. It's been a great show, guys. Thank you.
We appreciate you, Sia. Thanks for stopping by. While we love you, Sia, for joining, we do have to move quick because we got to get through this draft. Yes. So, audience, we appreciate your nominations. And we're going to go with Naismith and Grillo as your 2 picks. 2 very good picks, good values, way to get them in. I like the direction that your team is going. We're going to move right back over to Spencer for his next pick here.
Do I have clearance to make a pick without being accused of cheating this time around?
Absolutely not.
I'm going to go with, I'll tell you this. Nobody's taking this player in general, so I can't be accused based off of that reason here. But I watched this guy play on Thursday. I mean, I'm not so sure I've ever seen somebody miss more fairways in my entire life. He was in the rocks. He was everywhere that he shouldn't have been. I'm going to take Ricky Fowler at $7,400. 22nd in my model when I run this purely from an upside perspective. I think he has first-round leader appeal. Now, maybe this is a little bit too aggressive, but at less than 5%, like, I don't need a victory out of him. If he can give me a top 15, a top 20 type finish, if he hovers anywhere near that 22nd place result, which I do think we can see. I mean, he came 6th at the Fortinet. The Shriners, he turned it around a little bit on Friday. I had a Jason Day bet and a Taylor Pendrith bet over him on Friday. The Pendrith bet won, the Day bet lost. I'm just going to bet on the upside here with Fowler, and I think he's a unique play to try to get different. And by the way, there's a lot of very unique plays down in this range. Like, we can talk about some of these players at the end, but there's players with more distance than Fowler that you can get about at the same price tag that going to be, 3.5, 3.8%, 3.1% if you're just trying to shoot for the moon here on some of these guys that at least have some sort of a prerequisite that you're looking for at this venue.
I just had this song playing in my head. Guess who's back? Ricky's back. I hope you're right. And if he does come through this week, I would love for you to sing that entire song on the show. That would be fantastic. But David, you are on the clock.
I can confirm as well that, as you know, I was in Vegas for about 18 hours, and 6 of those were at the golf meeting Spencer in person. I found him wandering the course at VPC Summerlin, following Jason Day, Ricky Fowler, able to confirm Spence is still stuck in 2015. He's still living that dream. And Jason Day played well, to be honest. I was very surprised Spence wasn't on the 1 week that Spencer wasn't on him, and he finished 8th. So there you go. I'm going to go with a name that Sia mentioned. I thought this was going to be some good leverage, but maybe if Sia's on him, he's going to be less leverage than I'd hoped for, which was Kazuki Higa. I love what he's done on the Japanese tour this last year. He's won 3 times on the Japan tour. He's arriving off a T3 last week, so obviously he's coming in with good form, and he's already acclimatized in the time zone as well. We've seen him before make an appearance on the DP World Tour, so he's playing on the Japanese Tour, immediately popped up at one of the more premium events on the DP World Tour for a 10th place finish. So the guy has game, and in the $6,000 range, I think you're getting great value of someone who has actually some pretty excellent upside and who may fly under the radar. But given Sia had him as a first-round leader, I'd be really interested to see what ownership projections look like on him.
I'm impressed that you're both on him. I don't really have much of a takeaway in any direction from it. I don't have enough numbers to really look at, but I think that that's very interesting that both of you guys are on a guy that's, I'm seeing 2% owned right now. So we'll see if that holds true after he's mentioned on this show, but a unique take nonetheless with a guy who might shoot up a little bit now.
You all know that I move markets, right? So.
Very interesting indeed. All right. I'm going here to close the draft, my draft out. I have 2 picks. I'm deciding between 3 players. I'm going to start off with one of my heroes from last week, Matt Wallace. Bringing him back. His around the green game, his putting combination can make him compete in any tournament, right? If he just sinks a bunch of putts and cleans everything up around the green. I think it's actually a good formula for this week. Even if he misses a bunch of greens, he tends to clean everything up rather quickly, which should allow him to compete again this week. I'll do the same thing I did last week. I'll be honest with you guys on who I'm deciding between with my last pick. It is coming down to Adam Shank, the Shankopotamus. No, that's not a good name for him, but his ball striking has been really good. He's not the greatest around the green player, which could find some issues here, but he certainly is someone that can that is a really good elite ball striker. And if he finds that this week, he can compete. And the other option is Dylan Fratelli. Dylan Fratelli has finished a good result here in the past. He's in relatively good form. And he certainly does have some pretty good upside. So for the pick, I'm going to go with Fratelli here. I think it's the upside for me. I think, he's the guy who, if it's going to hit, I think he can get up a little bit higher if I'm looking to put this in a GPP.
You have to actually be shitting me right now.
Listen, Spence, I gave you 2 options, so now you can just steal one of my other picks. That's totally fine.
Well, I had 2 options. The first option that I wanted was Dylan Fratelli. The second option was Matt Wallace.
Well, that's tough.
And I'll share as well that featuring at the end of the show are both Fratelli and Shank for me. I already have both of those on my card, so obviously love those picks. In terms of my final pick of the draft, I'm going to leave plenty of money on the table here. And when I think of distance off the tee, potentially some adverse weather, great putter, great short game, I'm thinking of Lucas Herbert, who in markets is priced as low as 50 to 1. So I love the price that we're getting him on a DFS perspective. We've seen a real turnaround on his game. And for Herbert, I don't need to see too much from him in order to get back onto that train. So seeing a bit of resurgence in his game, I really like the pick for this week here.
Yeah, I like that call also.
I do as well. Spence, I know you're scrambling. I know you have very limited. And you know what's making it extra tough for you, Spence, is that there's no cut event, the Shank field. It's not like you have many other places to go, but please enlighten us.
Well, I am like, you are correct. I am scrambling right now to try to figure out who I want to take here. Well, let me pose this question to you guys, and then I guess I'll make a decision. The two players right now I would be deciding between would be, make sure I can afford both, Brendan Steele and Luke List. Do you guys have thoughts on those two?
My opinion is List is more volatile. I think if he does have a hot week, you can get a little bit more upside out of him, but he's also more likely to miss the cut. Whereas I think you get a little safer with Steele, but maybe limited a bit on the upside.
David, what about you?
I mean, both of them are obviously co-captains of Team No Putt, which is always your concern with both List and Steele. I agree with Joel. I think that Steele is the safer pick, and maybe looking at the rest of your lineup, Steele would be the lean in terms of putting a little bit more safety into that lineup with players such as Ricky Fowler in there who are going to be a little bit more risky.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you guys have said there. I think that that's probably the way to look at it. I think when you look at Luke List's current form, and it's not that Steele's has been brilliant, but List 73rd, miscut, 61st, miscut. Like, that's not great.
The thing with List is he's consistently gaining with the ball striking, right? So all you need is you just need that 1 week where he puts lights out and he'll win the tournament. And we've spoken about him before in that vein of what you're looking for is just 1 week of the putter being even, and he's going to finish top 5. And that's the upside. So I like the volatility that you get with him as well.
I think based off of that, even though my lineup construction maybe doesn't point in that direction, with this being a no-cut tournament, I think I can take that chance here with Luke List. He's 9th in my model when I'm looking at strokes gained total on short par 70s with average to difficult hit fairways. He kind of possesses a lot of that Dylan Fratelli stuff I was looking for. And if we're looking, I just want to go back to Fratelli for 1 second. If you're looking at $6,000 golfers, there's only 2 golfers in the 6,000s that are ranked inside the top 40 for me. That would be Hayden Buckley and Dylan Fratelli. Hayden Buckley is 14%. Dylan Fratelli is 2 to 3%. I think that's a great pivot option if you're trying to find a way to get different there. Same thing to be said about Luke List. He's 3.8%. Steele is 8%. So if it's in that situation where I can't really make a decision of what I want to do, give me the guy that I think possesses maybe a little bit more boom or bust potential with Luke List.
I love that. I think that was right there. He was someone I was considering with one of my last picks as well. All right, audience, get your final picks in to close out the draft. We need your nominations. Oh, it's already in. That was an easy one. Can they afford Seabez?
No. Yes.
Yes, you can. Seabez, it is. Of course, Byron picks his best friend as his last one. We totally get it, Byron. You beat him when you guys were younger. You probably could still beat him. So actually, you guys probably should have taken Byron instead of him. But anyway, that was your pick. You can't take it back now. Good luck, everyone. Don't forget to hit the like button. Give us a follow. It goes a long way. That's a wrap for the draft tonight, but we're not done yet. We do have the rest of our first round leaders and outrights. Sia already graced us with his presence. Sia is red hot, so you are going to want to trail some of his picks as well, but we'll give you ours before we wrap up the show for tonight. Why don't we start with you for tonight, David? We'll start in the outright market. Who do you like for the outrights this week?
Well, the first thing I'll point out is that I did indeed take Lucas Herbert for my last pick, and I don't want Spence stymieing my lineup by not showing the record showing that I've taken that player. So I know that I'm pretty awesome, but there's means to get around this. I do have Lucas Herbert on my card in terms of a pick. I have him with 8 places at 50 to 1. I have Cameron Young on my card. He's my top golfer this week. I have him at 19 to 1. Interestingly, I'm still getting value at that number. I have fair odds for him at 14 to 1. So at 19 to 1, that's a great tick for me. I have Kurt Kitayama. I managed to snag him at 70 to 1. So those odds have changed substantially since then. I also have Dylan Fratelli. I have him at 140 to 1. And I have Adam Shank at 125 to 1 as well. The rest will be posted in Discord in terms of suggested staking and top place finish bets.
Love it. Love it. How about you, Spence? You looking on the outright market?
So my model seems to think that the limited field and, the no cut nature kind of does propel the top of the board more than usual. So I'm going to slightly decrease my win totals from 8 units to 7. And I'm going to select 3 guys that are sub 40-1. It's a very aggressive card in that sense. I don't plan on adding anybody with like no in-tournament data. So I'm just kind of giving my card the way that it is. It's a little bit over 1 unit that I have in total. It's usually not that jumbled up together with the win total and the exposure that I have. But started with Sung Jae Im 12-1. I have Proper at 10-1. Cameron Young 19-1. As David said, I also have Proper at 14-1. And then Tommy Fleetwood 35-1. I have Proper at 25-1. And just to really quickly throw it out there, since we didn't mention it, at least I don't think he was taken. The player I'm most surprised wasn't taken was Colin Morikawa this week.
Yes, we did skip that section this week because we're in a little bit of a time crunch, but I agree. Colin Morikawa was a bit surprising of a no pick. For my outrights this week, I like Sepp Straka at 50-1. I think it's a really good number you're getting for a guy with his upside. I also really like Victor Hovland at 18-1, and of course, Hideki Matsuyama at 14-1. My Hail Mary toss of the week is going to be, as David already mentioned, as I drafted Dylan Fratelli at 150-1.
That's a good price. That's a really good number on Fratelli.
And the way I looked at it, I was looking at the numbers. Just look at the guys around him, and it's just like he stands out. It's like, some of these guys I haven't even heard of, or they're really below, and then there's Fratelli. So definitely has the upside. Again, not a likely bet, but definitely I like the value on the upside on it. All right, now let's go to our first round leader. Spence, who are you looking at here?
I took Siwoo Kim 40-1, Mito Pereira 40-1, Sebastian Munoz 40-1. The audience's pick of Aaron Rai at 60-1, Ricky Fowler 60-1. Coach did tell me that you could find that at 66-1 if you shop around on a site like BetMGM. And then the player that I seem to be on almost every single week, Alex Smalley 80-1.
Boom. There you have it. David, how about you for the first round leader?
I also have Alex Smalley on my card as a high upside player that I can trust for 1 round potentially, but not a full tournament. So I have him at 80-1 as well. Unfortunately, a couple of those numbers you guys are getting over there are fantastic. I'm only getting Heger as a first round leader at 80-1. So if you're getting that 100-1 number, there's great value there. Same with Fratelli. I'm only getting 80-1 on that number in the international market. So if you're getting 150-1, that's fantastic value. I also have Kurt Kitayama at 55-1. But my lock is the same as Sia. I have Cameron Young as the first round leader at 25-1 as a guaranteed bet.
Yes. For me, I actually like a first round leader. I'm taking a stance this week. All of my first round leader exposure is going to one guy. It is someone we mentioned already, and that is Kurt Kitayama. I love him as a first rounder. He does show up on these first rounds. He's been close recently. I think this is a week he gets hot and he becomes our first round leader at 50-1. One more reminder before we let you guys go tonight. Smash that like button. Give us a follow. It goes a long way. And then follow us on Twitter. Let us know which team you think is going to win the DraftCast this week. Whose lineup you like the most. We're coming back next week with the results. And we're going to celebrate again with another big win. Good luck this week. And, of course,